Every day that goes by, the threat posed by climate change grows, and people throughout the world are searching for sources of efficient, clean energy. Nuclear power plant-produced energy has long been a contentious subject. Nuclear power opponents simply need to mention the destruction caused by nuclear mishaps in the past, in contrast to supporters who claim that it is a sustainable energy source with no carbon emissions. The worst part is that nuclear mishaps can have long-lasting impacts that last for thousands of years. According to scientists, radiation exposure from a nuclear disaster can increase the risk of cancer and cause genetic changes in people. Additionally, it may have an effect on the animal and plant life cycles, which harms the ecology. To assess the safety of all nuclear and radiological occurrences, the International Nuclear and Radiological Event Scale, INES, was developed in 1990. All nuclear occurrences are categorized by the INES into levels 0 through 7, with level 0 denoting a deviation and level 7 denoting a significant accident. Here are the top 10 nuclear disasters in history, all of which scored a level 4 or higher on the INES. Number 10. Tokaimura, Japan, level 4. In 1999, there was a nuclear accident in Japan. 3 employees were mixing 2 different types of fuel in a tiny factory to create uranyl nitrate for a nuclear reactor when it happened. Unfortunately, they underestimated the quantities they needed to combine and used 7 times more uranium than was allowed. 2 of them died as a result of radiation poisoning as a result of this. Over 70 other people were exposed to high radiation levels. The majority of them were plant personnel, but a couple of whom were also civilians. While they made sure the area was safe and clear of pollution, authorities urged nearby people to leave their houses. Number 9. Saint-Laurent, France, level 4. At the nuclear site Saint-Laurent, France, has had 2 Category 4 nuclear accidents. The first time happened in 1969, when a partial meltdown resulted from the reactor's uranium melting. In an extremely dangerous atmosphere, workers spent a year cleaning and rebuilding the reactor. Despite the second incident at Saint-Laurent in 1980, France continued its nuclear development program. 2 of the reactor's fuels melted as a result of the cooling system failing. The only thing the authorities said about the occurrence was that no radiation had leaked outside the reactor or harmed the environment. Number 8. SL-1 Experimental Power Station, Idaho, USA, level 4. The only deadly reactor disaster in U.S. history occurred in 1961, when the SL-1 nuclear reactor in Idaho exploded. The SL-1 was one of several experimental reactors constructed in Idaho to study the production of nuclear energy. Sadly, a control rod malfunction caused an abrupt explosion when 3 military personnel arrived to restart the reactor following an 11-day maintenance shutdown. All 3 men passed away, but no radioactive material escaped the structure, shielding everyone outside from radiation exposure. After an 11-day holiday shutdown, SL-1 was getting ready to reopen on January 3, 1961. Rod 9 had to be manually reconnected to its drive mechanism by pulling it back a few inches as part of maintenance procedures. The rod abruptly withdrew too far at 9:01 p.m. MST, instantly sending SL-1 into prompt critical mode. The fuel inside the core melted and exploded, vaporizing 4 milliseconds later due to the heat produced by the ensuing huge power excursion. Number 7. Jaslovskè, Bohunice, Czechoslovakia, level 4. Bohunice was the site of Czechoslovakia's first nuclear power station, which was designed to run on uranium mined nearby. The most devastating accident in this institution, which unfortunately happened frequently, happened in 1977. During a normal fuel change, a worker made the error of wrongly removing cooling rods. A significant radioactive leak resulted as a result, but Soviet authorities covered it up such that no victims were ever reported. The plant was nonetheless shut down by the authorities following the disaster. Number 6. First Chalk River, Canada, level 5. Canada has only ever had 1 nuclear accident, which occurred in 1952 at the first nuclear research reactor at Chalk River Laboratories. A loss of coolant caused the reactor's core to become damaged, and a partial meltdown occurred. Fortunately, no lives were lost because the issue was identified in time. However, cleanup was a time-consuming job that required many volunteers. It's interesting to note that Jimmy Carter, a future U.S. president, was a nuclear engineer in the U.S. Navy at the time and participated in the cleanup effort. Number 5. 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, USA, Level 5. At 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania in 1979, a damaged pressure valve in a nuclear reactor caused panic among the workforce. They made several poor decisions that caused the reactor to partially melt down. Additionally, a radiation leak wasn't found until after more than 24 hours had gone. Within a 5-mile radius of the reactor, the governor requested that women and young children evacuate the region. Over 100,000 people evacuated the town as everyone panicked. Although there were no serious health effects associated with this disaster, it led to widespread panic and fierce public resistance to the nuclear program. Number 4. Windscale, UK, Level 5. The biggest nuclear disaster in the history of the UK happened in 1957. In the late 1940s, the nation constructed 2 nuclear reactors in Windscale, which today is a part of Cumbria. One reactor overheated in 1957, rupturing the uranium cartridges inside. The end consequence was a conflagration that lasted 16 hours and released radioactively dangerous elements into the atmosphere. While keeping quiet about the scale of the damage, the authorities for several weeks prohibited the sale of milk within a 200-mile radius of the factory. According to experts, this step may have avoided numerous serious health repercussions. Number 3. Kyshtym, Russia, Level 6. The third deadliest nuclear accident occurred in Kyshtym, which was then part of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union constructed the Mayak nuclear reactor in Kyshtym to make weapons following World War II. The reactor's cooling system failed in 1957, causing an explosion that spilled significant quantities of radioactive elements into the atmosphere. The government kept the accident under wraps and took its time issuing an evacuation order because the entire program was top secret. Even after 1989, the Soviets continued to minimize the harm caused by the calamity. As a result, nobody is exactly sure how many people Kyshtym killed. Number 2. Fukushima, Daiichi, Japan, Level 7. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake that struck northeastern Japan in March 2011 caused a tsunami with waves that were over 132 feet high. The administration was already feeling the effects of the tsunami and was unaware that it had cut off power to the 3 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The result was a meltdown. As a direct result, 2 persons passed away. Because they did not want to take a chance on radiation exposure, about 160,000 people were forced to leave their homes and places of employment. Even though the government has been attempting to decontaminate the area and has permitted a specific amount of individuals to return, over 41,000 people were still displaced as of July 2020. Number 1. Chernobyl, Ukraine, Level 7. The accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power facility in what is now Ukraine was the biggest nuclear disaster in history. The nuclear reactor exploded in April 1986 as a result of flaws in the design and people who disregarded safety procedures. The radioactive fallout from this explosion, according to scientists, was 400 times larger than the fallout from the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The poisoning in the atmosphere had an effect on nations as far away as Sweden. 30 other males with acute radiation syndrome, ARS, died shortly following the deaths of the 2 men who passed away immediately. More than 335,000 residents of the nearby town of Pripyat had to be evacuated by the government. Additionally, a 19-mile exclusion zone was created around the plant. Numerous toddlers and teenagers are thought to have developed thyroid cancer as a result of radiation exposure, according to experts. For maybe another 20,000 years, the area surrounding Chernobyl won't be habitable. There is no doubt that nuclear power has its share of issues, despite the fact that it may be a sustainable source of energy. We can only pray that history doesn't repeat itself and that a nuclear tragedy will not befall the globe once more.